Hey everyone, and thanks for watching today's video. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, which is Alchemy Stars. The game is available on iOS and Google Play, and it seamlessly merges fantasy and technology into its world and combat systems. Alchemy Star blends JRPG and tactics gameplay with wave battles, challenging players to chain attacks, to unleash specials, and change leaders on the way to victory. The Ocean Sovereign event is currently happening, which offers new event stories, characters, costumes, and challenges for you to conquer and gain rewards. You'll be absolutely enthralled with the options available to you in Alchemy Stars. You'll be hard-pressed to land on a favorite leader. But whether it's Carlene Barrel or the SummerEvent exclusive bonusy, you'll be rocking through Alchemy Stars in style. Heck, even the new minigame to help Vice make slushies a ton of fun. And you can start playing the Ocean Sovereign event today, and by using the code SummerEvent, you'll get one free character. So, click the link in the box below and start playing Alchemy Stars on iOS and Google Play today. And enjoy all those in-game rewards. Thanks for watching, and now let's go on with the video.
Yes! All glory goes to the winner!
Hey! Welcome to the Completionist, where we don't just beat the games, we complete them. These past few months have been a hell of a ride, if I say so myself. From grand highs, like me becoming a host of G4, to stressful lows, like staying ahead of some health complications, and, of course, mixed bags, like my new addiction to high-stakes petty crime. The one thing that remains constant throughout these life events, whether it be positive, negative, or somewhere in between, is that they take time and energy. And these days in particular, I'm grateful when a fun, easy, stress-free, quick-to-complete game is welcome in front of me. My friends, it's time to play, once again, some Sly Cooper. Now, this was a franchise that I hadn't gone near until the first 3 games were remade for the PlayStation 3. And with those 3 games now in the completion bag, I am unquestionably a fan of the smooth raccoon thief with weird human hands. This game was a well-executed 3D platformer with cute characters and a Saturday morning cartoon vibe, and subsequent games managed to stay true to that form while also introducing new elements to go a touch further. And with everything going on, this seemed like the perfect time to finally see what Sly Cooper 4 Thieves in Time had to offer. Sly Cooper was first introduced to the world in 2002 when Sly Cooper and the Thievus Raccoonus debuted for the PlayStation 2. The rising stars at Sucker Punch Productions were in need of a publisher and approached Sony with what was to become their next big hit. Sly Cooper's simple learning curve made it perfect for young gamers, yet the charm and design was captivating enough to reach a much more broader audience. The success of Thievus Raccoonus, its 2 sequels, and Infamous 1 and 2, led to Sony ultimately acquiring Sucker Punch. From there, we got more Infamous and, oh yeah, more recently, Ghost of Mother Goddamn Tsushima. So yeah, Sony made a good choice in banking on this raccoon. But because Sucker Punch was so busy working on Infamous, it had to defer development for the 4th Sly Cooper title to Sansaru Games. Sansaru had successfully remastered the first 3 games of the Sly collection for PS3. So they were obviously the team to pass the baton to now that Sucker Punch had its hands full with Broody McZap-Zap. And while we'll get more into my personal take on the 4th Sly Cooper game in just a bit, the general consensus was that Sansaru did kind of okay. Though not without criticisms, it's 100% a Sly Cooper game. Sly controls just as well as he did in the first 3 games. His nimble acrobatics and his trusty giant cane allow him to reach impressive heights in order to survey his surroundings, just like in the first 3 games. And like most of the previous games, you get to play as Sly's companions, namely the tanky Murray and the sharp-shooting Bentley. And also, like most of the previous games, there are collectible bottles and gold coin currency that can be obtained by destroying, well, just about anything. And with the new developer, we might get a big departure in terms of story, right? Well, no, not really. Thieves in Time picks up not long after we last saw the Cooper clan. Sly has been faking amnesia in order to live a normal life with his longtime rival / love interest, Carmelita Fox of Interpol. Meanwhile, Bentley is discovering that the pages of the Thievus Raccoonus, the tome of thief secrets that has been passed through generations of Sly's ancestors, has been disappearing. disappearing, all while Bentley and his girlfriend Penelope have been making breakthroughs with time travel. When Penelope goes missing, Bentley pulls Sly and Murray out of thief retirement in order to travel back in time to various eras to solve the mystery of the missing pages and to find Penelope. They find that each historical destination has been controlled by a present-day crime boss who all seem to be working for a clandestine figure. Fortunately for Sly, Bentley, and Murray, each destination also has a Cooper ancestor to help subvert the crime bosses and solve the mystery. So yeah, everything mentioned so far is sounding like Sansaru made a Sly Cooper game. It's pretty cool. But what's crazy is how ambitious this game initially was prior to development, especially for the PlayStation Vita version. I am talking about the use of QR codes to receive extra content and motion controls to drive and hack. Even co-op DLC was planned. Not only that, this game was going to have its own online social element known as Sly Cooper Thiefnet. It would have been this whole Animal Crossing thing where you can decorate your hideout, invite others, and trade stuff with friends. How do I know this? Someone leaked some documents containing the original pitch for this game like 2 months ago. This is very recent news for a game that came out in 2014. What I love about it is the perspective that we can all share today in comparing a big title like Sly Cooper 4 with what could have been. It's also just a great glimpse in general at how games are made. How this begins with this. Yes, I agree, though maybe with less Batman. Furthermore, those of you who know my stance on Animal Crossing can assume that I'm very glad we got Thieves in Time and not Thiefnet. I mean, if they wanted to take the Sly Cooper IP and do a spin-off game that was solely a community experience, I guess I would at least give it a passing glance. But if the plan was to throw the entire kitchen sink on top of the main game in the franchise, then I'd probably pass. I'd much prefer that a developer spend their focus on fleshing out the core of the game rather than bog itself down with trivial add-ons and gimmicks. And I don't even want to think about the bullshit trophies that might have accompanied that social aspect. Invite a friend to your hideout. Share a treasure. No, I'm okay. No thank you. You can get rid of that, which is what they did. So thank you to whoever at Sony was like, nah, just make Sly Cooper, please. So, spoiler alert, I like how Sansaru ultimately picked up the ball and rolled with it. They gave me what I initially liked about Sly Cooper. However, as glad as I am that we didn't get Thiefnet, there is an expectation for a franchise as successful as this one to break some new grounds. And honestly, I'm not sure if Thieves in Time did that. Going down the Sly Cooper checklist, I see that Thieves in Time marked off a lot of boxes. First off, if you enjoyed an eclectic cast like from the previous games, boom. That's one. The voice actors continue to bring a ton of personality to their characters, and even the voice of Sly, who I've criticized in the past for being kind of wooden, has stepped up his game a bit. The art style and level design remains imaginative and looks better than ever. Each character handles perfectly and provides unique ways of exploring the world. The score is tailor-made for each level. That awesome 60s spy music is pervasive throughout, and the sneaky string sounds that play whenever Sly creeps behind an enemy will always be appreciated. Check, check, and check. So Gerard, if they did everything right, what's the problem? What terrible thing could they have possibly have done leading up to this? Did your game bug out when you were 99% done, rendering your save file useless and turning your 12-hour experience into a 24-hour experience? Well, odd that you should ask that specific last question, but yeah, that totally happened to me. Perhaps it was a faulty disk, since not much came up when I researched the problem, so I'm going to do my best to not let that experience taint my feelings for the game. Going forward, however, feel free to mentally add a little 2 times whenever you see these bits of completion criteria fly across the screen. So no, that extra playthrough is not the terrible thing that I'm leading up to. Wait, I'm not even leading up to anything terrible at all, actually. The point I'm trying to get at is, through the process of completing the enjoyable game that Thieves in Time is, I couldn't help but see window after window of opportunities that go totally missed. Let's start with the various Cooper ancestors we meet in each world. We get a Japanese ninja, a Wild West gunner, a prehistoric brute, a European knight, and one of the legendary 40 thieves. These characters are no exception when it comes to eclectic personalities and superb voice acting. They are, however, not so eclectic with how they play. Sly's ancestors are basically clones of Sly. They get 1 or 2 abilities that make them unique, but otherwise, you're just playing Sly. The one exception is Bob, Sly's prehistoric ancestor. But guess what? he's just a clone of Murray. Throughout my playthrough, only one, thanks to the ability to replay any level or mission, I looked forward to meeting each new ancestor, and the varied personalities did not disappoint. But I kept waiting for these guys to play as differently as they spoke. How great would that have been? And it's like they haven't done that before. The previous game had a whole bunch of characters, and each one felt unique. Remember the Guru who could inhabit and control enemies? Or Dimitri who could, swim and stuff? How cool would it have been for the Cooper ancestors to do stuff like that? The only new characters that actually felt anything like a new character was Tennessee Kid Cooper. While his movements were still similar to Sly, his playable moments turned the game more into a third-person shooter. And they were my favorite parts of the game. The only downside is that when we finally get to play as Carmelita Fox, she then just feels like a lesser version of Tennessee. The only benefit to her is that she's playable in most levels, and even then, there's very little reason to ever select her. She's barely playable in the main story. Her high jump ability is only available for purchase towards the end of the game, rendering it useless. Oh yeah, and then there's this. Confession, I'm not above being attracted to an anthropomorphic fox. Part of me doesn't hate this. What I do hate is that this segment specifically is roughly a third of the Carmelita gameplay sections. This ripoff of the pole dancing segment from Dead to Rights, not to mention the fact that Murray does the same thing earlier in the game in Geisha Drag, is the only time you play as Carmelita in the late game. You take the trouble to bring her back as a playable character, and even allow you to select her in multiple stages. Why not give her a little more? For those rare moments I was required to play as her, I enjoyed them. At the very least, maybe throw in a few hidden treasures or Sly Cooper masks in each stage her way. Just something. As far as collectibles go, the main ones are bottles, Sly masks, and treasures. A lot of games lose me at collectibles, but here, there weren't a problem at all. Sure, getting a few tricky ones led to maybe half of my 12 deaths overall, but they were painless to find. At least one trophy is tied to each of them, and collecting them rewards you with cool things to use in the game. Collecting all 30 bottles in the level unlocks the level safe, granting you perks like obtaining more money easily, or not taking damage from falling in water. Collecting masks unlocks various skins, including Ratchet's wrench from Ratchet & Clank and Cole's amp from Infamous. Aside from being cosmetic nods to other PlayStation titles, the wrench turns money into bolts, and the amp shocks enemies with each hit. Oh, I like that for sure. Now, the treasures in this game are a return to form from the second game in that you not only have to find them, but you have to return them to your hideout within a certain time limit without taking damage. Now, I prefer this gimmick to the time trials of the third game. Instead of racing against the clock in a totally separate mode, these treasure challenges are immersed in each level and can be attempted whenever you stumble across one. Oh, and if you're into Easter eggs here, Clank and Daxter also make appearances here. Collecting all treasures in a level grants access to the level's retro-style arcade game. These resemble Bentley's hacking minigames you can play throughout the story, and a high score must be achieved on each of them for the 8-bit Bentley style trophy. Now, to be fair, despite what I said about the lack of new elements in this game, we've never had these mini-games in Sly Cooper before. Maybe they were a remnant of ThiefNet, and maybe the first level's game kinda kicked my ass, but they were pretty fun, so credit where credit's due. So allow me to combine the topics of collectibles and the underutilization of Carmelita and ask, how about placing some collectibles in areas only accessible with Carmelita's shock pistol? Or maybe give us access to her high jump ability earlier and have her jump to places that others can't. We are required to purchase the high jump anyway to get a trophy for buying all the abilities, so why not have the ability necessary for something? Anything to make Carmelita more than the underutilized footnote she became. Hell, I could even have used more Bentley and Murray. I relish the times I got to play as them because they provided me with the variety I was looking for, the same variety from the previous game. I feel that because this game went hard on the different costumes that Sly gains in each world, that there wasn't much left to give to the other characters. Each costume gives Sly one or two unique abilities, but perhaps doing away with the costumes and assigning their abilities to a Cooper ancestor would have been a stronger choice. Like if the bow and arrow ability from Sly's Robin Hood costume was given to Sir Galeth Cooper instead. That would thematically make sense and make Sir Galeth more unique. I get that you would then have to make every character playable in every level, but with everything else Zanzardo accomplished, they could have made that happen. So yeah, there were some missed opportunities to make the diverse cast of characters play as a diverse cast of characters. Let's talk about the plot and how there was a fruit ripe for the picking that never got picked. Again, if you like the story from the previous game, then you might like this one from how similar it is. You know the usual fare, baddies stirring up trouble, and much of that trouble affects Sly on a personal level. So Sly and company bring the baddies to justice and sometimes steal in the process, but when they do, it's to ultimately help bring the baddies down to their feet. So yeah, we can check the box for a feel-good Sly Cooper plot right away. The issues lie in the plot being a little too similar to previous storylines. I am going to talk about some story spoilers right now, so you may want to go ahead and skip to the link time on screen. We find out that the main villain is the skunk named Le Paradox, and his master plan is to eradicate the Cooper lineage out of a grudge for Sly's dad being a better thief than his dad. It's jealousy-driven and maybe a bit much, but for a kid's cartoon, it's fine. The thing is, we already had this story. In the first game, Clockwork hates the Cooper family and kills Sly's dad out of jealousy. This territory is starting to feel a little too familiar. And bigger spoiler, but I know a lot of people had mixed feelings about Penelope being revealed as one of the villains working for Le Paradox. Yeah, it was crushing to find out that Sly's former teammate betrays him and causes Bentley to literally retreat to his own shell, but I didn't mind it. But it still made sense because she did it out of love for Bentley, wanting him to achieve his full potential and feeling like Sly's moral code was getting in the way. Here's where I felt the plotline felt a little short. It could have gone further. If you're gonna make her a villain, make her the villain. We know she's brilliant with how she helped Bentley discover time travel. Make it so that she orchestrated everything. Bentley's too busy running around with Sly that he's not becoming the Bill Gates or Elon Musk that you want him to be. So you hire a bunch of thugs from the criminal underworld to make it so that he and Sly never met. How much more soul-crushing and badass would that have been than the skunk who we don't see until the third act and have no emotional stakes in? And that brings me to our next opportunity. Sly's parents are dead, and we have a time machine. Sly's parents are dead, and we have a time machine. Why aren't we seeing Sly reunite with his dad? Where is our Tony Stark / Howard Stark moment? Hell, we're playing as Sly's ancestors. Why not have one of them be Sly's dad kicking ass in the 90s? Why aren't we hanging out with Mr. Cooper? The only reasonable explanation I could think of for this omission would be related to a bonus cutscene we get for getting all the trophies and then beating the final boss. After the final boss, Sly disappears somewhere in time and his friends have no way of finding him. The bonus scene reveals that Sly is still alive and appears to be somewhat in ancient Egypt. To me, that implies that if the 5th game in the series finally does roll around, time travel is still going to be involved. And if that's the case, then fingers crossed, we still may get an opportunity to party with Papa Cooper. So did I want a little bit more from Sly Cooper Thieves in time? Yeah, it's safe to say that I did. If you look at the other big series like God of War, Resident Evil, Uncharted, this 4th installment would comparatively have been a prime opportunity to go the extra mile and bring us something completely new and different that wasn't maybe, ThiefNet. But I only say this as someone who really enjoys this series, so I am fully aware that I'm holding this game to a higher, unrealistic standard. Now, the main criticism this game gets is that it's short, which, for this series, once again, is very par for the course. It's also not a bad sign, and that's the worst criticism. It's proof that people enjoy what the game has to offer enough that they want more of it. Lucky me, I had to play more of it thanks to that weird bug that I encountered when I thought I was at the very end. But overall, Thieves in Time gave me what I needed. It was a joy to play, it was full of personality, and it was smooth to complete, even twice. I wanted Sly Cooper, and I got Sly Cooper. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of completed.
Complete it!